Symbology of the Bible, Volume 2. Gilgamesh. Historians generally agree that Gilgamesh was a king of the Sumerian society, centered at Uruk, which is Ur, in present-day Iran. The epic is commonly known as the man who saw the deep and contains details of creation according to the stories in the region of the cradle of civilization, which is Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent. When this writing is studied, many parallels are apparent between it and other writings, especially the Bible. This is expected since the Hebrew Bible is the foundation of the KJV Bible, along with canonized NT writings. And the Hebrews migrated westward from the region of the cradle. We can show this to be true by the definition of the word Hebrew and with Scripture.
Evil. H. 5676. Eber. Properly, a region across, but used only adverbially, with or without preposition, on the opposite side, especially of the Jordan, usually meaning the east. Etymology. From H. 5674. Aval. A bar, to cross over. Used very widely of any transition, literal or figurative. Transitive, intransitive, intensive, causative. Specifically to cover. In copulation. Etymology. A primitive root.
The Hebrews were known as those from across the river. However, it wasn't the Jordan, it was the Euphrates. Genesis 11 verse 31. And Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife. And they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees, to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran, and dwelt there. One source has mapped a probable migration path for Abraham's family. So elements of the creation myths of the Sumerian and Akkadian societies of the cradle were also those of the Hebrews. Note that the route continues into Egypt. There was a connection to Egypt long before Jacob brought his family to Egypt. Genesis 12 verse 10. And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. Not only did the children have myths from their homeland, they were now exposed to more foreign doctrines and other myths. According to the previous source cited, the creation stories of the first Mesopotamian civilized societies were based on a triad, similar to a trinity, formed by a sky god, Anu, who lived in a celestial palace, Enlil, who governed the affairs of gods and men with a temple on earth, and Aya, who governed an ocean of fresh water below the surface. This structure is duplicated in Greek mythology. Zeus residing in Olympus, the children of the gods on earth, and the underworld, governed by Hades. Christianity also follows this pattern. God in heaven, the children on the earth, and hell below. The reason for the similarities is that the people are related, migrating westward, bringing their ancient beliefs with them. All three groups mentioned above contain a flood story. Another source, when gods were men, is an Akkadian account of man, from creation to the flood. It is another version of the Elohim's presence on earth, as presented in Genesis, and is in line with the Greek tradition of the children of the gods here on earth, such as Heracles or Hercules. We could also connect these beings with those named by Enoch, the ones responsible for teaching man technology. This can explain the sudden appearance of monolithic structures, such as pyramids, which modern engineers are still trying to figure out how they could have been built, with the level of technology that existed according to the traditional evolutionary theory. There are numerous Akkadian creation tablets that have been found along that path of Abraham's migration, in Syria, Canaan, and of course, Mesopotamia. And according to records found of contemporary kings, Gilgamesh was a son of a goddess named Ninsun, and as such, surpassed all other kings. The epic says that he rebuilt the walls of Uruk after the flood, and also that Sumerian poems about Gilgamesh became the source material for Gilgamesh, the subject of the Akkadian tablets, Akkadia being the civilization that superseded the Sumerians. So we can trace the Hebrews back to Sumer, the traditional beginning of civilization. There is another interesting observation. While on this topic, the Sumerian, Akkadian, and Greek creation myths all speak of what transpired before Earth was created, whereas the Hebrew Bible does not have similar specific details. For example, Greek myths have chaos present before the earth was created, whereas the Bible begins with the creation and then speaks of the earth, not the cosmos, with details having to be dug up. In the epic, gods inhabited the earth under Enlil, and lower deities rebelled, causing Aya to develop technology to produce workers from clay. Aya is also associated with Enki, being the same entity. Thus, the first humans were born from the mother goddess, Aruru.
And the gods called out to Aruru, "It was you, Aruru, who created mankind. Now create a Zikru to him. Let him be equal to Gilgamesh's stormy heart. Let them be a match for each other so that Uruk may find peace." When Aruru heard this, she created within herself the Zikru of Anu. Aruru washed her hands, she pinched off some clay, and threw it into the wilderness. In the wildness she created valiant Enkidu, born of silence, endowed with strength by Ninurta. From the Epic of Gilgamesh, translated by Maureen Gallery Kovacs, electronic edition, by Wolf Carnahan, 1998.
So Aruru washed her hands and formed another man from clay, and created Enkidu in the wilderness. Subsequently, another entity, superior to Aya's creation, was formed by the Lady of the Gods through the word of Aya, and this entity was the king. Aruru was a goddess that helped Marduk in the war in heaven. Marduk is found one time in the Bible. Jeremiah 50 verse 2. Declare ye among the nations, and publish, and set up a standard. Publish, and conceal not. Say, Babylon is taken. Bel is confounded. Merodach is broken in pieces. Her idols are confounded. Her images are broken in pieces. Note, Bel is an Akkadian word for Lord, and is the basis for Baal, the god of the Phoenicians and Canaanites. The Hebrew for Marduk is
Mordach, page 4781. Merodach, a Babylonian idol. Etymology, of foreign derivation. KJV. Merodach. Compare H 4757.
Sources agree that this entity is the Hebrew equivalent of Marduk.
Merodach, also known as Merodach, Marduk, and Bel Marduk, is the Hebrew transliteration. Merodach, meaning death, slaughter. This is the name of the prime Babylonian sky god. Today he is most commonly known as Marduk. The Babylonians believed he created mankind and brought order to the universe out of chaos. He is represented with a dragon. From ChristianAnswers.net.
The traditional meaning of the name is given by the BD as high, as an exalted, valiant, bruised, myrrh, death, warlike, a Babylonian idol. This word can be deconstructed into H 4754, Mare.
Mara, to rebel. Hence, through the idea of maltreating, to whip, i.e. lash, self with wings as the ostrich in running. Etymology, a primitive root.
with H1790. Duck.
Dak, crushed, i.e., figuratively, injured.
This renders a transliteration of rebel crushed, and that indeed is the exact meaning of the verse from Jeremiah above. Thus, a look into Gilgamesh, the epic, reveals an account that supports the view previously presented. The war in heaven was a rebellion which catalyzed this new aeon, to judge those who would cease to exist. In addition, we see the use of clay to form man, and there are two creations, just as we would expect from the examination of the book of Genesis. Furthermore, some food for thought. Recent studies have shown certain clays are bioactive.
Bentonites induced growth inhibition of U251 cells and growth increment of SKLU1 cells, showing that interactions between bentonite and cell surfaces were highly specific. Our results, showing the inhibition of the proliferation response for U251 cells, were consistent with the idea that smectites controlled the levels of metabolic growth components, for example, epidermal growth factor receptor, EGFR, thereby inhibiting the development of high-grade gliomas, particularly primary glioblastomas. From the journal Chemisphere, Volume 149, April 2016, pages 57 to 61.
Returning to the differences between the Hebrew Bible and the other ancient accounts, the OT does away with the chaos and mythical character of the others, while retaining passages with miracles, which allows for the reader to contemplate the Word and discover the true meaning of the aeon from which this dimension was created. It was not chaotic until the serpent and his followers created the chaos. And when we read that Yahweh said our image, it means the other spiritual beings or angels from the parent dimension. And the issue is not confused by mythical ideas that nothing existed prior, except chaos and a couple of entities who created this earth.